Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Minerals research organisation Mintech says the prospects for the greater industrial use of gold are increasing significantly. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Can you give us a brief background of the capabilities of Mintech's research?
You know, the background is interesting because we're in the middle of a crisis now. But 13 years ago, there was a gold crisis as well, probably worse than what we've got now. Because, you know, gold fell below $300 an ounce. And I can remember it being $250 an ounce at one stage. And there was such a lot of panic in the country that business, government and labour, that was the first time they had a tripartite action. They actually travelled to the UK and they knocked on the door of 10 Downing Street and they tried to persuade people, you know, not to sell gold at this time because you were just pushing the price down further and it was hurting our people in South Africa. And when they came back, they said, no, well, we've also got to do something. You know, look at our platinum cousin. It's half of it is used in industrial applications, and gold is just typecast, you know, into this investment and jewelry scene. Come on, you know, let's find new sources here and new applications for gold. So they went along to Mintech, which was state-owned, and they said to Mintech, can't you do some special research on gold to take it into the industrial realm? In the same way as platinum is in the industrial realm. But they found with gold that the only time it would act catalytically was in nano form, very tiny form, you know, smaller than a pinhead. Like, what was that particular measurement? It was like incredibly small.
2 billionths of a meter.
2 billionths of a meter,
Mad.
yeah. And then when they took it to that size, they found that it also had optical properties, gold, because it turned purple. But it had these catalytic properties, so they were delighted with that, particularly in the low temperature niches. And so they set off then researching gold as a catalyst and found it to be a catalyst that can remove very dangerous gas called carbon monoxide. Can do that from car exhaust, but platinum is more suited because of the higher temperature there. But in lower temperature applications, they found to get CO out of smoke, for instance, if there's a fire, you know, gold catalysts could do that. So they sort of worked on that and then progressed further.
What are some of the other applications? Because we, as you said, only know it for jewellery and sort of investment purposes.
Yeah, and they also looked at its health roles because of this optical side of gold, you know, the therapeutics and the obesity. You know, it's a fat-reducing agent as well.
Interesting.
Whether it's economically so, I think still has to be proven, but there is a lot of work going on in that area. And also when it comes to malaria, it serves as a label. I was trying to get my head around this label. It's a way of indicating that a person has malaria very quickly. And they've got these very low-cost test kits that they've developed. And they want to have the capacity to develop they said millions of these. Because some of the tenders that are coming up require large volumes, and they were thinking of bidding on a Kenyan tender recently, which required a large volume of these, but they weren't quite ready. But the next tenders that come up, they actually want to bid with these little test kits that can determine whether or not you've got malaria in like 5 minutes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
We've seen the use of gold in beauty products, so it would make sense that they're now moving to the health side of things.
Yes.
Perhaps taking a gold pill will mean you can be fit and toned.
And you know, it doesn't. It's no longer gold in colour. It's quite interesting. It's got a whole lot of optical shades that, when you go into different nanoscale levels, there are different colours, and it can be reddish. And we saw it could be purple. It's got a whole range of colours.
Which field do you think has the most potential?
Well, it's definitely at the moment this CO field, you know, the removal of carbon monoxide. Because apparently there's legislation being developed, you know, in the background to make sure that the gas masks and the fire escape hoods that have gold, they're far superior. And it looks like, you know, this might be built into the legislation, because already in places like China, these gas masks and fire escape hoods, they're compulsory. You have to have them in hotels in China. All hotels have to have them, and airports. So if this happens around the world, the market is going to build up. And if they demand, the best, it's definitely going to involve gold. But interestingly, the Americans are also very upset about mercury going into the air in their power stations. Certain coals actually emit a mercury, elemental mercury, into the atmosphere, which has damaging effects. And so there's a lot of legislative activity going on in the United States saying we've got to get this mercury out, and how do we do it? And they actually discovered that if you pass it over gold catalysts, it oxidizes. And then the cleaning mechanism in your power station, the scrubbers as they call them, they can scrub that out. But as it stands now, they can't get that mercury out. So I think if that legislation is introduced, it's going to create a demand, and that could then really boost the work that Mintech has done. And everybody wants to translate this, of course, into gold sales. But because it's in nano form, you've got to have large volumes. But they do think that there will be quite a big volume business. They had a tender out. They were asked to bid on a 300 kilogram amount that was wanted for the fire escape gas masks. That would have been something pretty large for them. And the offtake of that was clear to them that the CO2 activity is now gone beyond research and development, and it's gone into the market. It's going to the heart of them. People are making products now that are being sold into the market. Some of them are quite secretive about it, but they're on that point of ordering large quantities. So there's quite a bit of optimism in that area, and it all really began with South Africa starting out in that crisis period, the previous crisis period, to follow this whole nano story, and which has put Mintech, up there with the rest of the world.
I've also read an article that the UN wants to remove mercury from all medical equipment as well, so temperature thermometers. Perhaps gold could play a role in that field as well. It
would be fantastic, and they do. They've got an American that distributes their gold catalysts. For an American company does that. And it's at the moment it's distributing the gold catalyst mainly to other research organizations. But what they're saying is that as those research organizations, move from research to development to products, there could be a whole lot of demand building up. In fact, the supply story has been solved. They're able to supply. It's just they've got to build up that demand. And hopefully that will come for gold, because we see how valuable that is for platinum. With so much of platinum being used industrially, the jewelry side becomes a safety valve every now and then. But with gold, an enormous amount is used. The bulk is used for jewelry and then investment, bullion as bullion. But we see how the investors, the Western investors particularly, have let gold down at the moment, and that's why the price has fallen. Even though in the East they're consuming that gold, it's not lifting the price. So it shows you what a big impact the investment market has on the price of gold, which has now fallen below that $1,300 an ounce, which I don't think people thought it would fall below, because a lot of the mining companies were sort of saying, we will now gear ourselves to a gold price of $1,300 an ounce, as if they thought, well, it won't fall below that. But it is already falling below that. So hopefully, that we can pull out all the stops to make sure that we can rescue gold, keep it going, because it's a fantastic generator of foreign exchange for us, and we need that foreign exchange at the moment. And it's done so much for our economy. There's so many forward and side linkages to gold. People do things in industry to support that gold industry and gold mining industry, and it's worth making sure that good marketing is done in that area. And I think that was one thing that the platinum industry showed us. You've got to do a lot of marketing. I can remember talking to platinum people 30 years ago. They just spoke marketing. They were always out there in the markets promoting that. And there are big organizations, Johnson, Matthey and others, that continually promote gold and continually look for markets for it. And now we see that same sort of urgency coming into gold. I think it was a mature, noble metal, and people felt, oh, well, it'll sell itself. But it doesn't walk off the shelf. In a crisis, we can see we need that regular demand, and you have to have some industrial demand. That's why this could really serve a good purpose.
Let's hope the brains out there hear this and it does become bigger than jewellery.
Yes, I think it would be great for it to be bigger than jewellery. I mean, you can see with platinum, half the platinum goes into industrial uses, and then you've still got the investment side of platinum plus the jewellery side, whereas 80% of gold goes into jewellery. So it's even more than that sometimes. So, and India at the moment is not buying gold like it used to. It's still going to probably buy 1,000 tons this year, which is great, but it was the gold used to get into India far easier. Now the government is trying to keep it out because it's trying to protect its currency. It doesn't want that outflow of money, people buying gold, and then the currency weakens as it flows out. So there are a lot of factors that are inhibiting gold at the moment, and it needs all the support it can get.
Interesting times.
Interesting times.
Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.